Welcome to the Joy and Goal Setting Podcast, where we empower individuals to discover their purpose, achieve their goals, and experience a joyful life through encouraging conversation. I am your host, Hutson Dodds. Today, we're sitting down with Katie Bryant. Katie is a wellness coach, business owner, and a mother of 3. We discuss finding accountability, overcoming depression, and how your past challenges can fuel your future success. Katie, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we're in the new year. Something I've been asking folks is something that you're really excited about for the new year, for 2024, and or maybe one thing that's causing a little nervousness or uneasiness about the new year.
Okay. Well, I'm really excited that first it's just a new year. I know a lot of people are like, well, all about not setting resolutions and, not looking at this as a new start. But I love to look at it as like a fresh new start. We've just been given a brand new year to live, and I feel like that's a gift. I just love a fresh start, new start. I get excited about it. And so I just love the energy of that. As far as being nervous about anything, I feel like I am a little bit of, I love to be a planner and I love to have control over things. And I've learned a lot through this life that's not always how life works out. And so learning to just trust where I'm going in this life.
Yeah. Control is a good thing and a bad thing,
yes.
Right? We love being in control because that also helps us have expectations and all those things, but also if you want to control everything, you inevitably get let down.
Yeah.
Right? And we can't possibly control everything, which causes stress and anxiety. So,
yeah, which we don't need more of in this world.
No, there's that perfect mixture, right, of controlling what you can control, we talk about, and then things you can't control, like letting go and just, letting those things happen. Well, so where are you from, and what college you go to, and what are you doing now?
So I'm originally from Rochester, New York, and it looks very different from Charleston, South Carolina, but I've been living here for a little over 5 years, and I love it here. I hope God intends on keeping me here because I don't ever want to leave. I went to college. I started off my college career at Keuka College, which is a very small private school in New York on a beautiful lake. Scenery is like nice. Movie scene. And then furthered my education later on in life through IHP, which I'm sure we'll probably talk a little bit further down the road. So I live here with my family.
And what are you doing now?
So originally, I've had a lot of jobs. But originally, I kind of started this journey 10 years ago in the health and wellness field as I started my own personal journey, and led me to what I'm doing today, which I'm a holistic health practitioner. So I work one-on-one with women.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's start 10 years ago then. So you jumped into this health space.
Yeah.
Were you someone growing up that was always fascinated by health and wellness? How did that come to be for you?
No, I was not. I didn't live an unhealthy life. I was a really active person. But no, I really wasn't, too much into health and wellness. I actually wanted to, originally went to school because I wanted to get into deaf education. And then I ended up going into sports management. And then I ended up, I got engaged when I was in college. My husband and I was 20 at the time. And a year later, I found out I was pregnant, and our wedding wasn't actually until 2 years after our engagement. And that kind of changed everything. And so my focus was more on becoming a mom, and I started working nights at that time. And my husband worked during the day so that we could raise our children at home. So I did that for almost 10 years. And during this time, after I had my daughter, I was diagnosed with postpartum depression. I ended up having my boys. My kids are all very close in age. So they're less than 2 years apart. And ended up being put on a good amount of medication for depression and anxiety. And didn't know this at the time, but I was on a combination of medications I should not have been on. And so I was, it was pretty bad. I was having suicidal thoughts. And that was something never in a million years did I ever think I would end up having or thinking. But I actually had how I was going to take my life all planned out. And before that was going to happen, it was going to happen right before I went to work. And I just got on my knees and I was just pleading and begging God that if I wasn't meant to do this, that something would happen to stop me, prevent this, but I didn't know how to make it stop. I had gone to my doctors. I had sought all the help that I knew to seek. And the only way I can explain it is I just wanted it to stop. And I really felt like everybody in my life would be better without me. And I literally got up from my knees and my daughter bursted through my bedroom door, and she's not a crier. She's still not a crier today. And she just grabbed onto me and started crying and told me she didn't want me to leave. And then my boys followed and they were holding on to me and they were just like, please don't go, please don't go. And I just fell into a puddle of tears. And my husband came home from work. We typically literally passed in the driveway.
Yeah.
And I would say hi, goodbye. I would head to work, and I wasn't in the driveway when he got home. And so he came upstairs to see what was going on, and I let him know what was happening at that time. I ended up being hospitalized for a week, which I thought would be a great thing. Yeah. Maybe I would finally get the help that I needed, but instead I left there more heavily medicated than when I got there.
Yeah.
And I lived my life. It is kind of a blur to me, which I hate saying because it was a part of my life that my children were growing, but a lot of it's a blur just because I was on so much. And that's when I started to turn to food and alcohol because it made me feel something. Yeah. And so I had never been overweight. I never had dealt with any issues when it came to being overweight, but 5-6 years of turning to food and alcohol, you gain weight.
Yeah.
So I found myself heavily medicated and obese. And I was just like, I cannot believe this is my life.
Yeah.
And I just remember just like constantly begging and pleading God, like, please help me change my life. And I just remember thinking like, this is how I guess it's always going to be. And then there was just a part where I was on vacation with my family, and I just remember going, there was something that happened, and I went back to the hotel room by myself, and I basically shut the curtains, and I sobbed in the bed, and I said, I can't live my life like this. When we go back home, I have to figure out how to change my life. And it was just making that decision that I was going to do whatever it took to not live my life like this anymore.
Were you still heavily medicated at that time?
Yes. And I didn't know how I was not going to be that, heavily medicated.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what that was going to look like.
Would you say that was the first time since that all began, since the postpartum and everything, that you mentally committed to yourself to making a change? I mean, it sounds like there are many times where you wanted to change.
Oh, I wanted to.
Was that the first time you committed to yourself, like, no, I'm actually going to find a way? I don't have a way, but I'm going to find that way?
Yes. I ended up having this dream. I'm not a dreamer at all. Like, I've had like probably a few dreams I can actually remember. But it was the type of dream where you wake up and you sit in your bed and you were like, is this real? Did this really happen or not really happen? But I just felt like in this dream, I was laying down. It was super bright. I couldn't open my eyes. I saw this hand. I grabbed a hold of it. It felt like it was like I needed to get out of where I was. And when I woke up, I felt like, oh my gosh, like I've been doing this all wrong. I felt like at that moment I had been begging and pleading God to change my life and like magically make that happen.
Right, not like a genie.
Yeah.
Now I rubbed the lamp. Come on and do it for me.
Yeah. And I felt like at that moment it was like, you need to take a hold of my hand and do the work with me. And it was then where I was like, okay, I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah.
And like I said, I didn't know how I was going to figure it out, but I had a feeling and just a confidence that I was going to figure it out.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing when we tell ourselves identity statements or positive statements or anything, how it can scientifically, we know it can change our life.
100%.
And it sounds like for you that's absolutely the truth. So committed to yourself that something's going to change. Don't know what yet it's going to happen. How did you kind of climb out of that space you were in to continue actually making change versus kind of spiraling back into depression?
It was hard. I want to tell you, it was like I made the decision and it was smooth sailing from there.
It's not reality.
But it wasn't. But I had two choices. I could keep living the life I was living, or I could choose differently. And I wanted to choose differently. So I really had to look at, okay, what are all the things that I'm doing in my life that are not serving me and are keeping me in the place that I'm in? I knew being on all these medications was one of the issues. And so I knew I was going to have to figure out like how to start getting off of those. I'm not against medication or anything like that, but I don't think most of the time it's a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
And
the root cause is not actually being figured out.
Yeah. And I wanted the tools. I wanted to figure it out on how to get there without the Band-Aid anymore. So I really had to like take an honest look at my life. And there were a lot of things I was doing that were self-destructive, especially my mindset. I hung out and surrounded myself with people that were negative because I was negative. And so it just made me feel better to be negative with other negative people.
Yeah.
And that was not good. You know, that wasn't serving me. That wasn't getting me to the place I wanted to be. And I knew that was one thing that really had to change, which was hard because some of those people I was really close with in my life. And then, you know, love them, right?
Yeah.
But just didn't love what I was allowing it to, or how it affected me.
The person that you're becoming, it was not the person you wanted to become, and they weren't helping you.
Yeah. And I wasn't strong enough to like be around people like that and not let it affect me.
Yeah, sure.
So that was one thing. Another thing I realized during this time was, wow, I am not nice to myself. And that's got to change. The things that I thought about myself, the things I said out loud, I would never say to anybody ever, not even like my worst enemy, you know? And I was like, that's got to change. I can't talk to myself like this anymore. Like, that's not okay. So I really had to figure that out. And this is when I first really learned about self-development and personal development. And I was like, okay, I need help strengthening this area. I don't know how to do that. So I started turning to books and audiobooks to help me figure that out. And so there were a lot of things I needed to strengthen. So I really had to go, okay, let's one thing at a time.
Yeah.
But I realized that filling my head with the things that it needed to hear, even if it wasn't necessarily coming from me at first,
Right.
was helping. Yeah. And it was just encouraging and empowering me and making me feel like, okay, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah.
And I had that belief I could, like I said, I just didn't know how.
The tools, right?
Yeah.
So was it difficult? I mean, it's always difficult cutting ties with folks, but finding a new community can equally be just as challenging. Mm-hmm. Were you able to find a community quickly or not quickly? How did you go about because I would imagine there's a lot of folks that feel similar, kind of like, yeah, these group of people I associate with aren't the best, but like, you know, we've been friends for 10 years or whatever. Right. What do I do now? Like, how do I find people?
Right. And I feel like you can still have those people in your life, but you just have to consume more of your time and space with people that you want to be more like that filling energy. Yeah. You want to feel. You've got to be around that. And so at that time, I found a community and I joined it because it was just about positive mindset. It was about working out. It was about eating healthier. And for me, I needed that. And it was a virtual community, which like almost 10 years ago, I started that, which is, it wasn't something that was super
it wasn't
popular.
Much of a thing at the point, right?
Yeah. And so it was kind of, for me at first, I was a little intimidated and a little nervous because I thought it was a Facebook group, which I had no idea people could message you on Facebook at that time. Like when I discovered that, I was like, oh my gosh, I have all these birthday invites I didn't know. I feel terrible. But, I remember thinking I was a little nervous because I didn't have a lot of confidence at that time. Mm-hmm. And I thought, am I joining a community where all these women have it figured out?
Right.
Is this going to be a welcoming community? Are they going to be judgmental because I'm just starting my journey?
Yeah.
But it was a really welcoming community, and that really helped me a lot. And it was just women from all over this country, which was cool because I made new friends that were all over the place. I wish that they had lived closer,
yeah, of course.
But it was nice to have that space.
Yeah.
Because I needed it.
Was a space for when you have people that are like-minded like that, wherever you are on the journey, everyone's different, but everyone kind of holds each other accountable, whether it's intentionally, which sometimes is really good for a community, and also unintentionally, just when you see people living the way that you want to live, that can be empowering. Yes. Obviously, it can cause the reverse, which is it can crush your self-confidence. But if you're filling yourself with positive things and you're filling yourself with positive people, it becomes not about crushing your confidence, building your confidence.
Yes.
Okay, I can be like them.
Yeah.
It makes you want to be better being around people that are pursuing a purpose, right?
Yes. And it's totally reframing your mind, going from, oh, those people are so annoying. They're so happy all the time. Like, what? Life isn't that perfect. Because that's how I would used to think, to going like, I want to be like that.
Yeah.
I want more joy. I want to be happy. I want to feel like, I always say, like, I want to feel like sunshine to others. I want to be a light. And 10 years ago, I was not that. I was not that at all. But yeah, being, choosing to surround yourself with that type of energy is a game changer for sure.
Yeah. That first step is the hardest. Mm-hmm. And I think you mentioned, we talked about just like committing personally is the biggest way to do it. And then it's the little small steps along the way.
Yeah.
It sounds like for you was a lot of the health journey personally to climb out of that, which can spill over to every area of your life, to family and all of the things.
Yeah.
Right? So how did you? So I'm assuming it sounds like that's what kind of got you into the health, wealth, business side of things too. Like you fell in love with it through your personal journey.
I did. Yeah. About a year into my journey, I began working with my doctor about 4 months into my journey. Went to him and said, "Hey, I need to talk to you because I want to start getting off these medicines, and I feel like I'm in a good place with these routines and healthier habits that I can do this." I think one of the most frustrating things for me was I was put on all these medications and I was told what they would do for me. I was never told what was going to happen when I went to get off of them. And so it was very difficult, very difficult. Just the side effects were horrible. And so that was definitely a hurdle to get over.
I bet.
For sure. So there's a lot of fighting. I say often, I think so many of us are like, oh, I wish we were motivated. I wish I felt motivated. And there are times where we will feel motivated. But I learned on this journey, I needed to be disciplined.
Yeah.
And I needed to focus more on that versus feeling motivated.
Well, you can build habits, and those are real.
Yes.
Feelings are also real, but they're unpredictable.
Yes.
Whereas a habit, we know, is neurologically is a thing that you can create.
Right.
New ones, and then that's the discipline side of things.
Yeah.
And those things you call them healthy habits. You can equally have unhealthy habits that we create.
Right.
And those are harder to break too.
Yes.
But once you do that, then when you don't feel like, to your point, when you don't feel like it doesn't matter if you feel like it or not. In fact, most of the time we don't feel like doing all the things.
No, we don't.
But if you build the systems around you to allow you to then continue, and we talk about your purpose. And if you know what your purpose is, then when you don't feel like it, you can kind of like recorrect and say, yeah, but this is going over here going to help me be the person I want to be. And the answer is no, then okay, let's come back.
Right.
Let's get back on that track and and you have guardrails that way.
Right. 100%.
So let's talk a little bit about your practice, what you're doing. You're working with women specifically. Is that one-on-one kind of? Yeah. What do you bring us into that?
So every client I work with looks different. So what happened a year after my journey, I started running accountability groups. And so building a community and providing a space that was provided for me, I began to provide for other women. And I loved it. I wanted to just give other women hope and to let them know they had a community that would welcome them and that they weren't alone. Because I think a lot of us, we're not vulnerable. And, we act like everything's great and fine and good, which isn't a bad thing. Right. But a lot of times things are not good. Yeah. And we can feel really alone. And it's hard to share that with other people. And so I really wanted to create a community where it didn't feel like that for women and they could share their struggles and feel like it was a safe space to do that, but also share their wins. And, I always say it's not like, oh, there's Susie bragging again about what she just did. Right. It was like, yes, Susie, like you're doing this. This is amazing. And just cheering on women. And I've loved doing that. But through the years, I'm getting older and went through some health issues myself. And one thing I learned when I first struggled after being diagnosed with postpartum was I really struggled to find somebody that I felt like was listening to me, like I was being heard. I think knowing what I know now, my hormones were probably completely imbalanced. And what I didn't need was necessarily these medications. I needed to figure out what the imbalances were and balance them out. But I didn't know that at the time. And I've learned that you need to advocate for yourself. You need to ask questions, and it's okay to get second opinions. So through these last 10 years, I went through some of my own health issues and, again, found myself in this place where I was like, gosh, like something is not right and nobody is listening to me, and the more I was sharing about that on my social media, the more and more conversations I was having with women who were saying, oh my gosh, I'm going through the same thing. I feel like nobody's listening to me. And I just kept hearing that over and over again. And I was like, gosh, I, love what I do, but I just felt like I was being called to work with women more in a intimate setting, one-on-one, where they actually had a place where they felt like they were being listened to.
You can provide that space for them, yeah.
So I really started researching schools, and I'm a researcher, and so my husband was like, Lord, you just need to make a decision because, I'm all behind you, but
at some point you got to pull a trigger.
Yeah. And I'm like, I know, I just want to make sure I'm right, making the right decision. And I ended up coming across this book that this doctor wrote, and I read it, and it was about this doctor who was diagnosed with all of these different autoimmune disorders. And basically, at 17, he was told, this is how you're always going to live your life. And he was not okay with that. And so he went on his own mission of I'm going to figure this out. Mm-hmm. And so he had to travel outside of this country and started studying, the way other people were being healed with autoimmunes and the things that he was diagnosed with, and was able through supplementation, changing his lifestyle, mindset, nutrition, changing his life and ridding himself of these autoimmunes he was diagnosed with. And he's been able to keep them at bay since then. And, became so passionate, became a doctor, and led him down this path. And so I was like, I want to study under him because he gets it. Yeah. He's been there, and he he just has a heart and a passion. And so I knew that was the right fit. And so, I ended up going, running my business, going back to school, while I was still trying to figure out what was going on with me.
It's a lot.
But it eventually led me to opening up my own practice in September of last year.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Exciting.
Thank you, yeah.
What challenges are you facing with the new business, and what are some big wins and successes you've had?
So I would say the challenge would be when I first started, I basically have a new client package. And so when I first set that up, I wanted to make sure, one, I had spending enough time with them. So we have 4 one-on-one sessions together that are an hour each. And we do like a really thorough intake form when they start with me. But what I've learned is outside of that, I set aside so many hours to work on all the clients that I see. Their needs are all so different. And it's really figuring out what their imbalances are so I can help them. And then we can get them onto a path to feeling incredible from within, which is like the ultimate goal. Forget the perfect number and weights and whatever. Like I want the women I work with for their goal to be, I just want to feel incredible from within.
Yeah.
And so what I've learned, which is that I feel like it's a refining process because it's a new business, is that I need more time. Because, some of the women have been dealing with these things for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And there's a lot of digging, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of things that are involved. So I'm realizing I need more time. So I'm realizing I'm not going to be able to see as many clients as I wanted to one-on-one each week because I need more time for the women that I am going to be working with. So I'm figuring that out and adjusting that.
Yeah. So do you mix in, or is this a part of it, or maybe not, kind of the accountability counseling type piece?
So I do with the women I'm working one-on-one with. I'm checking in with them every single week, following up with them, seeing how their week's going, because they're all following different things, different protocols. It depends what they're healing from, if it's gut issues, hormone issues. So everybody's journey looks different. Mm-hmm. So I'm checking in, wanting to know, of course, what their wins are.
Yeah.
But also what their struggles are and help them, So I'm just checking in with them weekly on that. And then I do a follow-up with them based off of what they share. But that's another thing that I learned I need more time with, because a lot of my follow-ups, I had, scheduled 30 minutes and they're taking me an hour and a half. Right. So, I'm, like I said, refining and learning as I go.
If you want to discover how the Ideal Life's founder, Mark Condon, quit smoking, shed 80 pounds, established a thriving logistics company, and embraced the challenges of becoming an Ironman triathlete, all thanks to the framework we referenced in today's episode, order your copy of his inspiring book, The Ideal Life, today with their website or any major retailer. Begin your journey towards a fulfilling life filled with purpose and achievement. What are some of the biggest, pitfalls, probably the wrong word, but I'm sure you see a lot of everyone has different needs and everything, but what are some consistent things either that folks could be doing that might be helping them on the front end, mm-hmm. or reoccurring things folks come in, you're like, gosh, if I just could have gotten 10 years ahead of this might have been helpful for you? Or is there not really any way of even saying that?
I guess it kind of depends on the individual I'm talking with. In general, like with the women that I've been working with in my accountability groups, I would say most of the women I work with, their expectations of results are very unrealistic. And I cannot say it enough. Like, you have to be patient. You did not get to where you are overnight. You're not going to get to where you want to be.
The reverse is also true.
Right, overnight. So being patient, because I get messages still, like it's been a week, scale hasn't moved, right. And they're freaking out. And right. I'm like, trust the process.
Yeah.
And a lot of us and a lot of the women I'm working with come to me with habits like I had, right? And so one, perfection can never be our goal because that's just unachievable.
Right.
And we're going to be miserable and it's not going to be sustainable. But two, just having realistic goals and timeline. And I love to tell people, like, give yourself a year.
Yeah.
Give yourself a whole year. Like, you're learning to change so many things about your life. It's right. going to take time.
Yeah.
And not to feel like a failure when you do something you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
Learn from it. Well, how did you feel when you pounded that bag of M&Ms? Well, I felt like crap. Okay. Well, do you want to keep feeling that way?
Right.
Well, no. Okay, well, let's figure out what can we do instead of turning to the M&Ms to solve our problem. What can we turn to instead? What's a healthier option? What does that look like? And so, it's reframing the mind, as we develop healthier habits.
Yeah, reframing the mind, and I think what you said is really good. We're trying to do, if you're trying to do so many things at one time, you're going to fail at most of them, right? And we talk a lot about doing one thing at a time really well and focusing and dialing in that thing for a quarter, then moving on. Because then you can really put all the effort and energy, and then your habits built. You can move to the next thing. If you try and do 7 things, well, you're probably going to fail at maybe 7 of them,
right?
Maybe 6, and then you feel like a failure. And even though you were successful in 1, that's great.
Yeah.
That's like you said. That's the long-term vision versus the how fast can I fix this, which really is like give me the Band-Aid,
right?
Versus this is going to take time to really develop these habits, really develop a new mindset. And kind of develop a new person, which is the ultimate goal, I imagine, right? Is like creating the version of the person you want to be.
Right. And that amount of work and effort, even though it feels like, oh my gosh, that's a long road ahead of me, makes everything that you achieve along the way so much more worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you appreciate your life and your health so much more.
Yeah.
Because of it.
Yeah, and I mean, it is a long road. Let's pretend it's a year or 2 years, whatever. But in the grand scheme, it goes by so fast. It really does. It does in the moment.
Right.
When you look back, you're like, God, 3 months ago, a year ago, like it's gone. It's so fast.
Listen, when I was doing a 25-minute cardio workout, it felt
like eternity.
I was like, how do people like this?
Are they running? Right.
I have to do this every day, like brushing my teeth. What are these people nuts? But again, like reframing my mind to going, instead of going, I'm dreading this. I hate this. I don't want to do this. I can't do this. It's hard. I was like, you've got this. You can do this. It's almost over with. Keep going. That was a huge piece to having success along the way, was just constantly going, nope, let's reframe that. Nope, let's make this better.
Well, it sounds like every difficulty you've experienced personally has prepared you for these moments to be able to turn and help others find their joy, which isn't easy to say, I'm sure. And I know it sounds easier to say than experience for sure. But it also sounds like through that process, you became an incredible coach. I mean, like you just said, you're coaching these people along to be their best selves, which I'm imagining is bringing you quite a bit of joy.
Yeah, 100%. I love. I don't like all the back office stuff.
No, of course not.
But, as a business owner, you got to do those things. But yeah, it does bring me such joy. It doesn't feel like that part does not feel like work at all.
Have you seen any of what you're learning and what you're doing translate to being a spouse or mom?
100%. When I first started my journey, I was for years very ashamed of how I lived my life and the example I was setting my kids. I always told my kids what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
But I wasn't showing them that. And I remember thinking when I started, because now my kids are 22, 20, and 18. At the time, 10 years ago, they were much younger, but they were older. And, I thought, is what I'm about to do and show them going to make a difference? But I honestly think that if you were to ask any of my kids, they wouldn't remember the old me.
Mm-hmm.
I think they just think of me always being healthy, which as a mom, like, that makes me feel emotional because I just, they're my world.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to show them like what it looked like to take good care of themselves because I want them to take good care of themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, I'm interested in food. So you talked about food and that journey for you. I'm curious, from your perspective, how does food play into your clients?
A big role. And I think probably most of my clients are attracted to me because of my social media and because of the food that I share with them. When I started my journey, I love food. Love food. And I knew that I didn't want to feel deprived, like I was missing out on things. And it's definitely been a journey that has progressed along the way for sure. Because I would do the 80-20 where I was like eating clean 80% of the time and then
indulging for 20.
Yeah. And That was okay for a while, but because I was eating so clean and developing all these healthy habits, when I was eating like the 20%, I was like, man, I feel like crap. I almost would feel like I had like a hangover, even if I didn't have alcohol, because I just felt so crappy from the foods I ate. And I was like, gosh, I really don't like feeling this way. Like it kind of became like, it's not really worth it. And so I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. I love nachos. Like, how do I make nachos healthier? Okay, I can use better, healthier homemade chips, or I can do sweet potatoes instead of the chips, or I can do peppers instead of the chips. Like trying to figure out ways that I could make things healthier so I could still enjoy them, still indulge in them, but still feel good after I ate them. So that was like a mission of mine. So I love sharing recipes with other people that taste really good, that are indulgent, and allow you to still feel really good after you enjoy them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're constantly pouring out to your family, and now they're older, but still I'm sure you are pouring out to all these individuals who I'm sure you love to death, but also aren't filling you up all the time, right?
Yeah.
How are you filling yourself up to make sure you have enough to pour out to others?
I would say my husband is a really huge help in that department. He is always reminding me to, like, it's okay. You need to, like, do something for yourself. You need to take a break. You need to take a breather. Because I am a workaholic just by nature. I've always been that way. I started working at a very young age, and I'm very driven, but throw something that I'm passionate about, and I could do this 24/7, which isn't healthy. So I've been really trying to honor, like, the day of rest on Sunday. I've been removing myself from social media at least 24 hours every single week, sometimes a little bit longer, because I do build a lot of my business on social media, and that's draining. I'm working on all the content, and it's hard. It's draining. And so he's always really great. Like tomorrow, he had told me like a week ago, like, take Friday off and you're going to show up in athletic gear. I'm not telling you what we're doing.
Oh, nice.
So like, he's really good at being like, yeah, got to take some time off and enjoy life.
And then he sees when you're not, he's like, fine, I'll build it in, and now you'll have to.
Yes, exactly. Like, it's already planned. You got to show up. You got to do it. But he's been so supportive, and that's huge, because I talk to women all the time who don't have supportive husbands, and he's just been my rock. And like, he's like, even before I had it here, he knew I was a little nervous, and he was like, "You're gonna do great, babe. Like, I know you're gonna crush it today," and like, just sweet little messages like that. So, and it's been great because I have been able to. He was an athlete, and he was a pitcher in college, so he's always been athletic. But when I was unhealthy, he was a little unhealthy. We kind of like
together.
Let's have ice cream. Let's have cocktails, whatnot. But so I do feel like when I began to change my habits, and he, started to see how good I was feeling, and I wanted him to feel as good as I was feeling. I want everybody to feel as good as I'm feeling. He started
jump in.
Yeah, which has been awesome. So he's like, crushing the gym, 5 a.m. workouts. He's in great health, takes really good care of himself, and
you can own account when a group inside your house.
Yeah, which is amazing. And my kids too. Like, I love, they're working out, and they're, my 18-year-old, he's still making some food choices where I'm like, oh, come on, you're not going to feel good. I get asked often, like, do your kids eat, only healthy foods and eat perfectly? And I'm like, no, they don't. But I am proud of all 3 of them, because they do, they make choices that are good for their well-being. So it's a good thing. Yeah.
Well, if there's anyone listening that wants to get in touch with you or learn more, where do they go?
Fresh Fit Kate on Instagram, or my website, which is also Fresh Fit Kate as well. So when I opened my practice, I thought I was going to change that name, because that was attached to my accountability groups and that brand, but it's sticking for now.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for everything. Thanks for being open and honest, and very inspiring.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
The Joy in Goal Setting podcast is proud to be partnered with and brought to you by The Ideal Life. The Ideal Life offers a multimedia platform that is focused on cultivating a growth mindset. Here, you'll find a supportive community of coaches, valuable online resources, and transformative courses aimed at helping you lead a more gratifying and joyful life. Ready to take the next step in your personal growth journey? Visit theideallife.com to explore their wealth of resources and join their vibrant, growing community today.